Let me introduce myself. My name is Mark Bowman. My friends call me Bo. I grew up on a quaint farm in Pennsylvania. My family grew wheat most of the year and pumpkins in the fall. Life was really good growing up. No real problems, no real issues. I guess I was fortunate growing up with loving parents and four awesome siblings, of which I'm the second youngest. Every winter, after all harvests were finished, all five of us kids would escape to the large forest patch on my family's property. My parents owned 200 acres, 15 of which was heavily wooded. It butted up to over 10,000 acres of privately owned forest. We built ourselves a hunting blind and a tree fort. We lived the life. But something happened when I was 6. One cold winter afternoon, my childhood friend Dave was over and all of us were playing around on four-wheelers and camping out in our fort located around 3/4 of a mile from the house, reading scary stories to scare the pants off of each other. It usually worked. My oldest sister, Tess, was reading a scary story about a rogue forest monster who ate children. Of course, we were terrified as we were currently in the depths of a scary forest. After I nearly jumped out of my skin from a well-timed jump scare from the oldest brother, needless to say, I had to use the bathroom. I scurried down the 12-foot rope ladder to hurry to some privacy by a patch of bushes about 20 yards away to relieve my nearly exploding fearful bladder. After what felt like 10 minutes to relieve myself, I started to head back. It was nearly dark at this point, and of course, having a one-track mind, I didn't grab a flashlight. I got about 10 steps away from the bush when I hear a stick break. I froze in fear. I imagined a huge, alien-like monster with 3 heads about to eat my face off and make me its experiment. I very slowly turned around to my right to see nothing. I felt so stupid for working myself into a tizzy. I turned around to head back to the fort when my worst fear came true. To my left, about 100 yards out, was a tall, dark silhouette. It moved toward me a little, and that's when the awful smell hit me like a ton of bricks. It gave off a low growl for about 2 seconds. I was so scared. I made a run for the fort. Just when I reached the rope ladder, a large rock flew past my head. I climbed back into the fort like I was running from a monster, because I was. My heart was pounding hard, and I was out of breath. 2 of my siblings already headed home at this point. My oldest sister asked me why I was so wore out from just peeing. I told her what happened, and she just laughed. She said it was a cheesy attempt to scare them. They told me the dark was playing tricks on me and my imagination was running wild. I tried my hardest to convince them it was true, but to no avail. I would wake up with nightmares about the event, but my mother tried to soothe me with the "it's only a dream" line. That day was the first and last time I encountered whatever it was in that forest. Until recently. Fast forward 35 years. I'm a doctor now with my own small practice outside of a big city. I have a wife and 2 children of my own. My parents passed away several years ago, and my siblings and I all share the now shut down family farm as a vacation spot and relaxation point. I should add that there is a creek running through the corner of the property that has the best fishing for miles around. I haven't been back to the farm in over 10 years, so I decided that I needed to get away and go to the farm and unwind for a couple of weeks. So I pack up my hunting equipment and fishing gear. I get myself a few weeks' worth of supplies and head out to make the 76-mile drive. I get there Sunday evening around 8:15 p.m. The power and water stay connected year-round, so it's live-in ready at any moment. I pull up and it's already dark out. I open the car door and fill my lungs with that crisp farm air that I remember from my youth. Fond memories flood my mind as I think about how many days and nights spent with my siblings and friends on this farm, playing in the open fields, swimming in the creek, and play hide-and-go-seek in the forest. I felt safe, like nothing could happen to me, just like it did when I was a little boy. I get my things out of the car and trudge with all my luggage and gear the 40 steps to the front door. I get up to the door where the motion light, with one bulb burned out, lights up my vision. I set my things down and get my keys out of my pocket to unlock the front door. As I'm fumbling through my keys, I notice something peculiar. Now, I've looked at this front door and run in and out countless times, and I've never noticed scratch marks on the doorpost near the side of the window. I didn't think much of it, as I assumed over the years a raccoon most certainly had tried to climb up and scratched as he fell. That would have been one big raccoon. But I shrugged it off and went inside. With 3 days of beautiful sunrises with fresh brewed coffee, amazing fishing, fresh-caught dinners, and epic sunsets that remind me of the good old days under my belt, I'm finally getting some much-needed relaxation. The best part is, I'm even sleeping in my old room upstairs that overlooks some open land and faces the forest. I wake up on day 4, ready to do some hunting. I eat some breakfast and pack up a go bag and get my equipment ready. At about 10 a.m., I start out for the hunting blind I had played in and hunted in so many years ago. About 30 minutes later, I get to the blind. It's still in excellent shape for how many years it's been there. I nestle in, load my father's old double-barrel gun, pour myself some bourbon, and wait. 6 hours have passed and there's not much action. The evening is usually the best time for good hunting in these woods, so I'm hoping to get some action then. I end up dozing off for a couple of hours. I guess the bourbon relaxed me a little too much. As I was rubbing my eyes and regaining my bearings, I froze in utter fear. I heard a noise that I hadn't heard in 35 years. I hear a stick break just like I had heard so long ago. I know logically that I'm not a little kid anymore and I have protection this time, and I'm 12 feet in the air. But fear gripped me to the point that reason was no longer a factor in my thinking. My mind went straight back to that dark, tall silhouette I had seen so clearly. I grabbed my flashlight and turned it on. I scanned the surrounding area. Lo and behold, there is a little squirrel roaming the forest floor for food. A wave of relief sweeps over me. I lean back and pour myself a little more bourbon. Another hour goes by and only my new squirrel friend is out and about. I decide to call it a night and get my things together. Since I've been up in the blind for so long, I didn't realize how much I needed to use the bathroom. I get down to the ground and walk about 10 feet to the right and relieve myself. As I finish up, I smell a putrid odor. My first thought was a poor animal had passed away. That theory crashed to the ground when I heard the same low growl I heard 35 years ago. It clicked instantly in my mind that the stench I was smelling was the same smell from that day. I was drenched in fear. I had my flashlight in my pocket, so I pulled it out and looked around my surroundings. I didn't see anything immediate. Just shrubs, undergrowth, and trees. But to my complete horror, my flashlight landed on a large pair of eyes up in a nearby tree. As the light reflected off that pair of monstrous eyes, my mind reminded me that whoever that was when I was 6 threw a large rock at me to deal me a death blow. It missed. Perhaps it was just a warning to stay back. Perhaps it wanted to kill me. I thought I would never know. Seconds later, those eyes dropped out of that tree. Towering over 8 feet tall was a humongous, hairy beast of a creature. Huge, broad shoulders, a neck and chest and arms so muscular it could break a tree with its bare hands. What looked like a primate on steroids was now staring down at me. I realized it was the same silhouette from all those years ago. I finally realized it was Sasquatch. I thought it was only a legend or folklore. Never had I imagined this mystical wild man, as so many referred to it as, was real. I dared to shine my flashlight back into its face to reveal the most nightmarish scowl with teeth longer than my fingers. It gave out this blood-curdling, guttural howl. I stepped carefully back to my backpack for my gun, only to find out that my only source of protection was still in the blind. In my rush to relieve myself, I had left it. The only thing I had was a small knife, a flashlight, and a flint striker. The house was 3/4 of a mile away, and I knew I could never outrun this thing. I made a break to get back into that blind. A 12-foot long rope ladder was no easy task for someone who hasn't done it since high school. I made it back into the blind in under 10 seconds, no doubt due to the adrenaline coursing through my veins now. I heard it take off after me. Heavy, pounding footsteps as it crushes every shrub and branch in its way, and its deep, raspy breathing was the only sounds filling my ears. I grabbed my father's gun, cocked it, and fired off one shot below me in the dark. I had dropped my flashlight, so the only thing I had was a flint striker in my pocket. I waited for what seemed like an eternity and could hear absolutely nothing. I pulled out my flint and struck it to produce a momentary bright spark that cut through the darkness. My eyes registered nothing. I struck 2 more times on the other side of the blind and still nothing. I thought maybe I had hit it and it ran away. I thought wrong. I leaned down out of the blind toward the ground and struck the flint. What my eyes captured was more than my brain could process. In that moment, I was face to face with the beast. He was looking up at me, and I was looking down at him. Only mere inches separate us. He let off a loud bark. I matched him with a scream of terror. I lifted back up into the blind and grabbed my gun. I had 1 bullet left in the chamber. Before I could spin around to fire at it, a large, powerful hand grabbed my ankle and yanked. I dropped straight to the ground with gun in hand. As Sasquatch tried to hit me with his other fist, I rolled to miss it. It stepped close to me and I kicked it in the leg. That was a mistake. It let off the most aggressive cry straight into the air. I knew it wanted to kill me now. I took off running, gun in hand, toward the house. You are likely wondering why I didn't just shoot it. I knew I had 1 bullet and the other bullets were in my backpack that was now ripped apart and spread everywhere. I had to be sure that the only bullet I had would be the kill shot. I was about a half mile from the house as I heard the huge, heavy footsteps leaping behind me. With the stride of an Olympian, adrenaline was coursing through every muscle, every vein. It was a full moon that night, so in the clearing of the farmland, I could see much better than in the forest. I spun around and dropped to 1 knee. In that moment, I saw my siblings, my grandparents, my parents, my beautiful wife and children. The whole sum of my life flashed before me. I knew I only had 1 chance to live. I drew down on the monster of my childhood, and I fired. The loud pop of that lone bullet echoed the whole area for miles around. Now there was dead silence. My eyes focused in the direction I fired at. Laying in the field no more than 20 yards from me was that beast that rocked me to my core during my childhood and now my adulthood. The thing that haunted my dreams seemed no longer alive. I walked back to the house and took a moment to regain my composure and reload the gun. I drank some water and collected my thoughts as I walked back to the spot I killed Sasquatch. I knew I needed to go back and make sure it was dead. My conscience told me I had to make sure it wasn't suffering. I knew it would not have thought twice to make me suffer, but I knew it was the human thing to do. I arrived back at the spot and just stood there in shock. It was gone. No traces of blood or hair. I knew I hit it square in the chest. It had to have been a kill shot, I thought to myself. As I work out in my mind what on earth is happening here, I hear a faint noise come from the forest. The full moon shone light onto the border of the forest and revealed the beast's eyes staring back at me. I caught sight of it for only but a moment before it disappeared. I stood there for nearly an hour in shock, contemplating what happened in my life that flashed before my eyes. Early the next morning, I packed everything up, with the exception of what I left at the hunting blind several days before, and drove back home to my comparatively safe suburban life. It's been 2 years since this happened, and I've not told anyone, even my wife. I was forever changed from that day forward. I am grateful for my life that I have now, and for being raised to take care of myself. That is what saved me when I was 6, and is what saved me 2 years ago. Everyone has a turning point in their lives where something happens and they learn to appreciate life and those around them. I had my turning point. I no longer take things for granted. I look for the small things in life to be happy about. I learn to appreciate what I have while I have it, because one day it could all be gone. I learned it the day I met Sasquatch. Thank you everyone for listening and watching. My name is Matt. I hope you enjoyed my story. Your generosity and support is much appreciated, so please hit that subscribe button and like my video and share to your social media. I'll catch everyone in the next video.